This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 221 of the CineSnob Podcast. I am Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Cody, pardon you. That was.
Thank you.
You got a little frog in your throat there.
I did, yeah. I was trying to do it off mic, but
yeah, well, didn't work. So one of the big things that happened this week, we'll just get right to it. A big fan, both you and I were, of comedian Norm Macdonald, who died last week. I believe last Wednesday. The death was announced. Tuesday. And after a secret battle with cancer, I guess I shouldn't say secret, I should say not publicized battle with cancer. Mm-hmm. One of those deaths to me that's pretty hard hitting. I've been a big Norm Macdonald fan ever since I first saw him on Saturday Night Live. Gosh, like probably 28 years ago now.
Yeah.
It was a huge part of Conan O'Brien's shows over the years. I think that's probably the most shared clip I saw of Norm Macdonald after his death was announced was the clip where he's on the panel with Courtney Thorne-Smith.
Yes.
On the old Late Night with Conan O'Brien, and she's there on behalf of the Carrot Top movie, Chairman of the Board.
Yes.
Which, have you actually seen that movie?
I've not seen it.
I know that I've seen parts of it. I can't remember if I saw the whole thing. He just gives her enormous amounts of shit about starring in a movie with Carrot Top, calling him box office poison, and saying bored is spelled Bored. It's just a great clip. But yeah, you broke this news to me, Cody, which I'll never forgive you for. But
yeah. I've been known amongst my friends to be like celebrity death TMZ because
you are very online. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I've gotten less so in my career change, but you are very, very online.
Yeah, with my new job, I have been a little less. It just happened to be when I was in between things at work. So yeah, I mean, it's something where I was always a fan of Norm's, but you know, every so often, maybe like once a year, I would go down these Norm Macdonald YouTube rabbit holes, and it's just this endless treasure trove of such great stuff. Like, you know, one time I got bored and I watched like 30 minutes of OJ jokes from Weekend Update, and like,
yeah,
you know, just his Weekend Update stuff was so funny, and you know, he had his like video podcast that he did, and you know, you can find very separate, like cut out jokes if you look of some really graphic jokes that are very funny. And yeah, I mean, I mean, a lot has been said about him that doesn't need to be said by us, but just, you know, just the fact that his delivery was just, I think, one of the best joke tellers I've ever heard before, just in terms of just like, you know, constructing both jokes that are like extremely funny and also, you know, what he became known for in his kind of later appearances, which is just like, you know, just droning on with like monotonous, boring stories before hitting you with a stupid punchline that just became kind of his trademark, especially with Conan and like, you know, the Geraldo roast, or not the Geraldo, the Saget roast. Where it's just kind of like anti-comedy kind of thing. And so, you know, he could do that. He could be really funny. And you know, one of the best things I saw about him was like how he would oftentimes hold an audience hostage waiting for like to either move on from a new joke to a new joke or hitting a punchline, you know. You know, it's, you know, you could see it in his Weekend Update stuff. So yeah, it just sucks. It just really sucks. He was just such a funny comedian. And yeah.
What about his movies? I know he wasn't in a lot. You know, he had stuff like he was in Billy Madison briefly. I can't remember his line. He has a line that everyone likes to quote, but I can't remember what it is.
I remember my favorite line of his, which is Adam Sandler asks him what today is, and he goes, October?
I remember him. Did you ever see Man on the Moon? Or Man on the Moon, I'm sorry.
I have a long time ago.
He has a very, very brief part playing Michael Richards.
Wow.
Because like Andy Kaufman was part of like it was I want to say it was a CBS competitor to Saturday Night Live called Fridays. And that's where one of the places Michael Richards started. And he plays like in a just tiny tiny scene, plays Michael Richards. And then he did a lot of voice work, like in the Dr. Dolittle movies. I've seen Dirty Work. I know a lot of people really love that movie. It's one of those movies I can watch for about 45 minutes and then I give up on it.
I've never seen it.
It's funny, but in a related sense, have you ever seen Pootie Tang?
No.
That's another movie that's funny for about 45 minutes. You're like, all right, I gotta go. It does, because it just keeps going the same direction. But yeah, Dirty Work it's him and Artie Lang, and I think Don Rickles is in Dirty Work. Chevy Chase has a small part. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. It's got a lot of he co-wrote that, so it's got a lot of his weird jokes in there, like Old Jack and stuff like that. Anyway, I mean, a huge loss for me personally, as a comedy fan, just because those Conan bits have become kind of legendary, and that Bob Saget stuff is a real perfect example of just like a big fuck you to what those roasts are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because I believe I read or heard him talk about it, that it came from those jokes came from a joke book that his dad had given him, like as a like when he started comedy, like thinking it would help him. It was like old dinner party jokes.
Well, there was the Conan O'Brien did a podcast with Andy Richter and Frank Smiley on just kind of remembering Norm, and they tell the story of the moth joke from Conan, and he said that it was like a 30-second joke that Colin Quinn told him that he extended into like 7 minutes
because Frank Smiley threw him out there for a second segment.
Yeah.
And he was basically a fuck you to Frank Smiley. My favorite story from that podcast, which I just finished listening to on the way home to record this, was his like weird idea for a sketch about Sully Sullenberger. That it was like right after the Miracle on the Hudson had happened, and he had a sketch where he had been cast as Sully Sullenberger in a movie, but that it started shooting like 6 months ago before the Miracle on the Hudson, and he was elated because now he finally had an ending for the movie. Anyway, yeah. Speaking of Conan and Norm Macdonald, both had their moments last night at the Emmys. Norm Macdonald being honored by Lorne Michaels in SNL's win, and then Conan O'Brien doing something, being drunkenly stealing the show. I don't know what happened. That's a great clip. I didn't watch the Emmys though, but you did. I know you were pulling for your boy Bo. Yeah,
it didn't happen.
Sorry.
Which, by the way, I don't understand how. So he lost to Hamilton for taped variety special, but also Hamilton was nominated for best TV movie. So how does it get to double dip there? I don't understand that.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
there's always a sense that the Emmys, the full on like primetime Emmys, have a sense that they want to award something that's very popular, not necessarily what's most deserving or the best. Sometimes they get it right. I think one of my favorite wins was like Kyle Chandler won for like the final season of Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
I don't follow the primetime Emmys too closely. But there was a time in the late 90s, early 2000s where like the Oscars would win an Emmy for best like variety show.
Yeah.
Like it's
the
just
Oscars was nominated this year for that.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous stuff like that. That you'd be like, what? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Wasn't there some crazy didn't Don Cheadle get a best supporting actor or best guest actor nomination for like his a minute and a half in Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
I mean, it's stuff like that it's a little bit ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and they are, it's weird because the Emmys have this weird trend now that didn't used to be a thing, but now certain shows are just sweeping entire categories. And that kind of happened to some extent last night. I mean, look, no matter how you slice it, it was a huge night for streaming for sure, where, all of the comedy side of things, Ted Lasso won for lead actor, supporting actress, supporting actor, and comedy series. And then the other 3 comedy Emmys went to Hacks for directing, writing, and lead actress, which are both streaming. Hacks is an HBO Max original. It's not an HBO show.
Oh, it's not? I thought it was.
No,
it's so weird. Weird.
That one's a Max original. And then, on the drama side of thing, I think The Crown won close to everything. So that's a Netflix best drama series winner. So, outside of, and also TV series and movie was Queen's Gambit. So I think they ran the table in best series in terms of streaming winning. So, that's always an interesting thing. The thing that's super interesting about it is that there's like so many great options for TV right now. We are so overloaded. And then 2 comedy series win awards. The Crown wins most everything. And then the original TV and movie was like 90% Mayor of Easttown and Queen's Gambit. So, it is a weird thing to see. I wasn't unhappy with it. I'm a big Ted Lasso fan, and I really love Hacks as well. So that was fine.
Yeah, the limited series stuff, that's a relic from the miniseries days, which they don't do a miniseries anymore. I guess you could say they're the same thing, but it's not really.
Everything these days has an option to continue somehow, and so some will submit for a miniseries and then be back, because I think American Horror Story used to dominate that category, but because it was an anthology, and I think they took anthology out of the thing, because I think it's like TV, it's TV series, movie, or miniseries, made for TV movie or something else. It used to be anthology series as well, but I'm not sure that they do that anymore because American Horror Story was just winning every year. But there's weird shit like Ewan McGregor won for something I've never even heard of before, for actor on a TV series or movie, or I'm sorry, miniseries or movie for some Ryan Murphy Netflix series I'd never heard of.
Halston? I've never heard of that either. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. It's it also seems to be very very heavily dominated by, again, nominee wise, the very, very popular shows.
Yeah.
You don't really get the dark horse like you do with the Oscars.
I will say to some degree, yes, Hacks is a legitimately interesting win because that show is not big and
I mean, there's a lot of buzz around it though.
Right, but I mean, very rarely are you going to have a movie that, even with the Oscars, that wins with no buzz around it. I mean, it's...
True. But I mean, there's not going to be an actor that comes out of nowhere, that's unknown to win a Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor trophy, whatever. You're going to more likely get a Ewan McGregor that wins, that wins something kind of out of the blue like that. What was the show like? I heard there was a lot of it was supposed to be outdoors, but it clearly wasn't outdoors. Seth Rogen has a big rant about that.
Not a great show, but it was not super well done. There was a 5-minute Mike Pence fly sketch. This fucking
timely.
it's like an 18-month-old joke.
It's not that old, but yes, yeah. It might as well have been in a Jurassic era joke.
I mean, it's closing in on being one calendar year old.
Oh yeah,
at this point,
no, for real.
And so, and then there was just a bunch of really falling flat sketches. It just didn't really work all that well. The intro was not super great. I think. It just felt like a flat show, I think, altogether. And then it's just, 3.5 hours long. It's just so long. And then like there were some people who gave really long speeches, and like everyone was getting mad at Scott Frank for he called off the music, and he's like, please stop the music. And he gave like a 3.5 minute self-serving speech when everyone knows that they have 45 seconds. So
Yeah. So I'm looking at the winners here. It's a so like best variety series, outstanding variety talk series went to Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which I thought might have gone to Conan since he went out. You know, that was his last year, but I think that's probably a lot in it for Last Week Tonight. I don't know what its Emmy count is.
I mean, they've got to be at like 5 in a row by now, I think.
Probably pretty close. Yeah, I'm a little surprised Ewan McGregor pulled out that win. He was up against Paul Bettany, Hugh Grant, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Leslie Odom Jr. For Hamilton. It seems that's the one show I've actually never heard of, Halston.
Yeah, no clue, no idea.
Kate Winslet winning for Best Outstanding Lead Actress. It's probably a little bit of a surprise.
Evan Peters won.
What is he in?
Mayor of Easttown.
Oh, I had no idea.
It's funny. A lot of people are making jokes that the one time he doesn't work with Ryan Murphy, he wins an Emmy.
I see Gillian Anderson won for The Crown.
The Crown cleaned house on the drama side of things, including everyone was really thinking and hoping that Michael K. Williams would win his part in some huge something or other won for The Crown.
Yeah. So outstanding live variety special was Stephen Colbert's Election Night 2020. Up against Celebrating America, an Inauguration Night special, the 63rd Annual Grammy Awards, the Oscars, and the Pepsi Super Bowl 55 halftime show starring The Weeknd. Man, that's weird. That's a weird set of nominees. I mean, clearly the Colbert stuff is the high watermark there. I don't even know which part of Celebrating America, like whose broadcast was Celebrating America, an Inauguration Night special.
It was all across different networks, I think. But here's the other interesting thing too, is that in the sketch comedy category, there were 2 nominees. That's it. 2. I
haven't gotten that far yet. I don't see who was it. So I assume SNL.
Yes, and SNL will never ever lose that award. But the other nominee was a Black Lady sketch show.
Oh yes, I did hear that. Yeah,
but then what are we doing here? Like, you're not gonna I Think You Should Leave shouldn't be nominated there, or.
Well, I'm curious what the cutoff is, because a lot of this stuff seems very, very recent.
Yeah.
Usually I don't know what the cutoff is for the Primetime Emmys.
Well, I mean, Bo Burnham's Inside had to have been like right on the cusp of the cutoff, because that was out.
When did I Think You Should Leave season 2 hit? Not long after that, right?
I think so.
I don't know. It's weird because the Grammys are even worse than that, because
July 6th is when I Think You Should Leave came back, so maybe next year.
Maybe. Yeah, it's strange. It's a strange awards ceremony because it doesn't really. You're not. If you haven't seen these things, then you're screwed, because it's not like it's. You're not going to get like a surprise win. I don't think. And there's very little variety. It seems like. Yeah. See, like outstanding supporting actress in a comedy series. Of course, Hannah Waddingham wins for Ted Lasso, but she's also up against Adie Bryant and Kate McKinnon and Cecily Strong for SNL, which doesn't really make sense.
There's weird shit like that, like for supporting actor comedy, 4 cast members from Ted Lasso were nominated in that category.
And then 2, you got Kenan Thompson and Bowen Yang.
Yeah.
It's such a strange mix of formats there.
And it's weird too, because you'll have stuff like Ted Lasso, and it's nothing to take away from Ted Lasso, a show that I love, but it has a great season, and Jason Sudeikis amazing in that role, but like, to think that Steve Carell never won an Emmy for playing Michael Scott is like bananas. Like,
I was thinking of this when I was weirdly when I was walking in my car today. I was thinking about the Emmys, and I was thinking about how there was stuff like that back then that like dominated the zeitgeist, and not so much but like dominated the Emmys, like 30 Rock, for example, disappeared from the zeitgeist now.
Yeah,
like it's all about The Office.
Yeah, I mean, shit. Modern Family, no one really remembers that, and it dominated the Emmys.
Yeah, it's weird how that stuff shakes out, and that's nothing at all against 30 Rock. I mean, it's an excellent show, and probably stayed better longer than The Office did, but it constantly beat out The Office. I think The Office won Best Comedy Series once.
Yeah, one time. Same with Arrested Development. That one once as well.
But there was times that was back when like Modern Family was cleaning up.
Yeah,
and Modern Family's a fine show. I have nothing against Modern Family either, but it's clearly not like the cutting edge of comedy like some of these other things were.
No, and Modern Family was ruling when, back when like Parks and Rec was like the crown jewel, the critical jewel of comedy television, and that didn't win shit. Like Polar never won. The show never won. Nobody won from that show.
Yeah, and then lesser stuff like Community had a couple of really great seasons before sputtering out.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, like Kyle Chandler sneaking in like the 1 year that Breaking Bad didn't have technically didn't air in the eligibility period.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't automatically go to Bryan Cranston, which I have no problem with.
No.
I think that probably the biggest like with the snubs like that, the one I can remember most recently was Michael McKeon getting shut out for Better Call Saul.
He didn't even get nominated for that.
Right. Yeah. It just.
Well, and I think Rhea Seehorn like rarely gets nominated too for that show.
Yeah, I don't know. It's such a strange award ceremony because it's very, very insular. It sticks very, very close to the vest on everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, last year I think was the feel good year when everybody wanted to give everything to Schitt's Creek, a show I've still never watched. But
I watched it between then and now. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's a perfectly fine show, but worth like winning every single comedy Emmy. Like, come on.
I don't know. Okay. Anything else to add before we move on?
No, just happy for Ted Lasso and for Hacks. I think it's pretty cool that those shows won, and Ted Lasso is just this juggernaut now, and it's just crazy that it was adapted from a commercial for NBC Sports.
Yeah,
and I sent you like some statistics about the pay raises that everyone got, and Sudeikis getting paid $1 million an episode, and yeah, just crazy.
One day I'll watch it. One day.
It's really good.
But all right, let's go and move on to reviews.
Here are this week's reviews.
First up this week, we have Cry Macho.
Back when we had winners, I was afraid to lose you to the competition. 5 times you won the All-American. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? That was before the accident. Before the booze. You know how many people told me to just cut you loose? You gonna say anything?
Howard, I've always thought of you as a small, weak, and gutless man. But there's no reason to be rude.
You owe me, Mike. You gave me your word. And that used to mean something. My son, Rafael, he's in trouble. I want to get him out of Mexico.
You want me to go down there and kidnap him?
Please, just get him back up here.
Just you?
Just me. Hey, Rafa, you can come out now. I'm a friend of the family.
Touch me and I'll kick your ass, old man.
Jesus Christ.
This is, of course, the latest directorial and starring effort from 91-year-old Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
This is... I see people calling this a Western. It's not a Western.
No.
You get kind of the gist of the plot. It's he's sent to his boss Dwight Yoakam sends him to go pick up his son who is living in who's a Mexican national living with his mother. It debuted in theaters and on HBO Max. Cody, tell us about Cry Macho and what you thought of it.
Sure, I'll give it a shot. This movie is very strange. Just in the plot, like Dwight Yoakam sends a 91-year-old man to go do his dirty work. And
to be fair, I don't think he's supposed to be playing 91.
I mean, sure.
He is clearly a very, very old man. A very, very old man. But I don't think he's supposed to be playing this character, because they said in 1980 this character wasn't born in 1890. I don't think. Like, he's not from the 1800s.
I sure. I mean, I guess sure, that's fine. But it's hard to reconcile how old he looks and acts. With the idea that he's supposed to be like this tough guy in the movie,
right? Sure.
Which is just jarring. I mean, it is a weird decision to put him in this movie, and I don't know why he continues to make this kind of movie when he's old as shit. and it's I mean, the poor guy. I mean, stumbling over lines that are just left in the movie. The acting across the board is really bad with almost everyone involved. And they're writing these scenes where on multiple occasions, women half his age are
or less
are just throwing themselves at him. And he's just like, he's just, he can't be bothered. and it's like, what is going on here? And I don't know if you noticed this, but
okay.
It seems like a lot of they were playing to what Clint can do now, and there's so many scenes of him either getting ready for or waking up from sleeping or taking a nap.
There's a very long scene where he's sitting on a very comfortable couch.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, my grandfather just passed away. He was 91 years old.
Yeah.
As well. He looked about the same shape as Clint Eastwood did. Still mobile, slow, hunched over. I wouldn't send him to go to the grocery store because that's too much for him. No, I'm not going to send my poor old grandfather to go do something anyway. Yeah.
But he is, but it is, and you can't ignore it. He's scuttling everywhere. He's hunched over. Like I said, he's always about to take a nap or waking up from a nap. It is a bananas idea for a movie to make this old man this, tough guy. And also there's weird plot lines. Apparently he's an ad hoc vet of some kind. They make him really care about animals, but he doesn't really he's not a vet or anything. He's just oh, this pig needs this, or it's
Here, let him sleep in your bed tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know how to cure old. Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. But yeah, so it's and I don't look, it's an easy target. I get that, but it's beyond just being this weird kind of thing. I just don't think it's a very good movie. I think that it really plays up to this relationship he has with this kid, which feels it never quite feels like the connection is there. The kid seems to teeter on the fact is he mature or is he immature? I can't ever tell. He could be 11 or he could be 17. I don't know.
And he's oh, you're a real cowboy?
Yeah. He's really impressed by that.
Yeah.
And it just speaks to the screenplay. I was telling you this while I was watching it. The dialogue is so lazy in this movie that there's multiple times where they repeat the same thing 3 times in a conversation. There's one scene where they're about to drive down a side street to avoid the cops. And it's Clint Eastwood going, oh, we're going to drive down this street. And the kid's where are we going? And he's oh, the cops are there. We're going to drive down this street. And then out of nowhere, it's just we're going to drive down this street for a while until it's just, yes, we get it. I get it.
Also, like he appears to have driven like maybe a day into Mexico, and then he ends up being there for like weeks. It appears.
Yes.
Like, anyway.
Yeah. So look, I mean, again, I don't really have a lot of positive stuff to say. It's easy to beat up on, like I said, Clint Eastwood being old and out of touch, but like, really, it starts with a really bad script. Who I don't know if this was like written for someone else and he stepped into it, or if this was written specifically for Clint Eastwood. But it is a mismatch. It doesn't work. Again, it doesn't help that the acting across the board is pretty terrible. So I had fun laughing at it, but I did not enjoy the experience.
So, okay, I'm going to read you some text messages. So on Saturday, I went down to San Antonio to help my dad with fixing something. When I was leaving, I mentioned to him, like, hey, that new Clint Eastwood movie is out, because my dad's a big Clint Eastwood fan. Mm-hmm. And if this movie's for anyone, it's for him. So I set up their HBO Max account for him. And, like, he must have watched this, like, literally started watching this as soon as I walked out the door. Because as I was driving home to Austin, I get this message from my dad, who's, again, a huge Clint Eastwood fan. He goes, hey, no offense, but that was the worst Clint Eastwood movie I've ever seen. I'm sorry. And I said, yeah, I didn't really like it either. He said, I kept waiting for it to go somewhere, and it never did.
Yeah.
And that's really the issue here, is that nothing really happens.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point of the movie is that he's going to get this kid. That's the inciting incident. Is he's told, he's basically coerced into going to essentially kidnap this kid from Mexico for Dwight Yoakam's character. When he gets there, he finds that the kid is a delinquent, but he's not really a delinquent as the screenplay plays out. Like, he's just sort of a wisecracking kid. Like, his mother, who is trying to fuck Clint Eastwood at one point, it tells him that, like, yeah, good luck finding him. He's cockfighting on the streets, which would have been an interesting thing to, like, have him pull this kid out. But the kid's just like, oh, you're a cowboy? I'll go with you to Texas. And it just kind of spins its wheels from there. There's this weird plot line where the mother has, like, goons. For some reason, she's super wealthy. I don't know what the circumstances are. But she has goons that are threatening Clint Eastwood. One guy in particular who is, like, the most hapless goon in the world. Because he runs up on them at a restaurant at one point, and threatens threatens him with violence. And then the kid tells all these onlookers that this guy had been molesting him, and they all just, like, surround him and beat the shit out of him. Mm-hmm. And then that same guy shows up near the climax of the movie and gets bested by a fucking rooster. I mean, that guy, and he, like, basically does the old cartoon, like, throw his hat down and stomp on the floor, and then that's really it. That's what this guy does, and it's so comically bad.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know who this movie's for, because this isn't some, like, neo-Western from Clint Eastwood. This isn't even like, Gran Torino level where you've got this old crotch trying to reconcile with a changing world around him. This is just some half-assed road trip story that doesn't really ever get fleshed out into anything more than what it is. And again, I don't think Clint Eastwood's supposed to be playing a 91-year-old man, but he's very, very clearly a 91-year-old man. And it really stretches the credibility of a lot of stuff in the movie.
Yeah, well, and also, too, the other thing to remember is, like, there's this whole, like family dynamic of the Dwight Yoakam stuff of, like, him going to live with his father, but yet his father is kind of, like, using him for some convoluted, like, land dealing kind of thing. And, like, that just becomes nothing, it just leads to nothing, where the kid just is like, yeah, I guess I'll go with my dad. And, like, that's the extent of it. But yeah, the mishandling of the kid, I think feels weird. Cause, like, yes, he's, you think he's going to be this really dangerous character, and really he's like a wide-eyed, like he's interested in being a cowboy kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, like is he 6 years old? What's going on? You know?
Well, and they talk about that, like when Dwight Yoakam is first talking to Clint Eastwood, he's like, tell him you're a cowboy. Every boy wants to meet a cowboy or something like that. And you're like, what are you talking about? What is this?
Yeah, he could be a cowboy in Mexico. Like I don't understand what the difference is. Like, anyway, what is your grade for Cry Macho? We didn't even talk about what Macho is. It's the fighting rooster, and it's some like weird through line through the movie.
Yeah.
By the way, the rooster is like a Scooby-Doo like character where it seems to have human characteristics and like know right from wrong. And anyway, what's your grade?
Yeah, I'm giving Cry Macho a D+.
Yeah, I think a D+ is where I'm at too. It's just, I don't know. Again, if my dad didn't even like it, I don't know who the fuck this movie's for. Like, I don't know who the audience is for this movie, because that's you have to have, I assume, some innate fondness for Clint Eastwood and just the desire to see him in anything, but to see him so terribly aged.
Well, here's the thing, is that he was too old probably for Gran Torino to play a tough guy, and that was like 15 years ago, like at this point.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you know, he already had his like swan song Western thing with Unforgiven, which was one of those things that's, you know, a major cultural touchstone. And then, you know, he kept going with it. These, you know, goofball stuff like Space Cowboys and what's the other one? The one where he was like playing baseball with Amy Adams. I can't remember what that one was.
The Curve.
Yeah. Anyway, it's on HBO Max now if you want to watch it. But anyway, let's move on to our last movie, Copshop.
When are you going to arrest me? One of you people, please arrest me.
You're under arrest. So why were you looking to get locked up, Theodore?
Everyone's trying to kill me. He nearly killed us. What'd you do? I did what I had to do to get to you, Teddy. The legendary Bob Vidic. You're a psychopath. I'm a professional. You pissed off the wrong people, and I'm gonna kill you.
Drop that gun. No one kills anyone in here.
You say you fell?
Yeah. Well, to clarify, I shot him in the head, and then he took that little tumble.
Hola! How bad is it?
Are you an idiot, Teddy?
So this is the latest sort of, what would you call it, like a really pulpy action comedy drama thing from director Joe Carnahan, who you may remember from Narc, Smokin' Aces. He also directed the A-Team movie.
Yeah, a lot of not great stuff, but he also made The Gray, which I think is actually really good.
He also is the EP of The Blacklist, which a show I've never seen, but seems to be very popular. Tell us what you thought of Copshop, Cody.
Yeah, so this movie, as I watched it, the first thing I thought of was this was very clearly a COVID production where it's taking place in like one location for the most part, in this police station. And I looked it up and it was filmed in October 2020. So, you know, it's a self-contained kind of, you know, sort of like you said, pulpy action movie where I'll be honest, I never really understood what was happening. And I think that like, so what you have essentially is like, you know, it starts with, Frank Grillo trying purposely to go to jail, to clearly get away from something. And then, you know, in the cell across from him at some point comes Gerard Butler, who's been contracted to kill Frank Grillo. And then it becomes like this whole thing where there's people crossing and double crossing. I never really understood what Frank Grillo does or why people are after him. I don't know if maybe I missed the nuances of that, but
he was a fixer, I thought.
Sure.
Like a what's the guy from Winston the Wolf?
Like Harvey Keitel from
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
But like it clearly like sort of hapless.
Yeah. And so what it becomes is like this cat and mouse game between the two of them, and then mixed in with like some corruption going on with the police department and one cop who's kind of trying to, figure out who to trust and blah, blah, blah. And what you get, I think, is a movie that is... Look, it's hard to talk about this movie without mentioning the elephant in the room, which is about midway through this movie, which is perfectly fine. The actor Toby Huss shows up in what can only be described as a larger-than-life performance that I personally loved every second of. I like Toby Huss a lot, actually. I really like him from *Halt and Catch Fire*, a show. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
No, but I mean, he was a huge part of *King of the Hill*.
Yes.
Which I was a huge fan of.
Yeah. And I just think he's a really great actor, and he's clearly doing this that typical Southern foghorn leghorn kind of like unhinged guy thing.
Yes.
And doing so really, and just he's like clearly chewing the shit out of some scenery, and comes and kind of, you said to me it's like he's in a different movie, and yes, it is. He's in a different movie, and I think momentarily for a good 15-20 minutes kind of picks up what I thought was kind of a dull experience. There's been some talk where Frank Grillo was talking about how Joe Carnahan's cut wasn't the cut that made it out there. And you may be able to see evidence. The more I've thought about it, the more I wonder if it's more in like the Frank Grillo character has an ex-wife and a son who that story is not really fleshed out much. But once the Toby Huss thing is over, I think it just is kind of just this run-of-the-mill talky, kind of cat and mouse thing. And then the ending of the movie, it has like a something that really bugs me in movies where it's got like 3 false endings on that, like a twist and then another twist on top of that and then another twist on top of that, where I'm just like, oh boy, I'm not a huge fan of this. And then it ends on a very odd sequence as well, that I wasn't a huge fan of. So yeah, I don't really have a lot to say here other than, I think that, I wish that it maybe had a little bit more intrigue to the characters, or that we could kind of get a sense, because I really think that we only know Frank Grillo and Gerard Butler's character very surface level. I mean, Gerard Butler's character is mysterious almost to a fault, where I don't think you know anything about him by the end of it. And yeah, it just feels like thin characters, thin story. I wasn't a huge fan.
There's a few sequences in the movie that I think play out really fun, and I think that's kind of going from the arrival of Gerard Butler's character into the police station. There's just kind of this little minutia of the day-to-day stuff that's going on in the police station, and then until Toby Huss's character shows up and just blows it all to shit. It's hyper violent stuff from Toby Huss, which I think is really welcome, because it's kind of this plotting thing that doesn't really pick up. I don't think Frank Grillo's got a lot to do, and I'm curious, like you mentioned, if there was some meat cut from his part, because there's a scene, I didn't play it, that was in the trailer and in the film too, where he's it's a very sort of comical scene where he's like almost car bombed, like his car explodes, and it's played for laughs, and I'm curious if that was a bigger part of the film, because the character's not played for laughs at all. No. Otherwise, and that little segment really feels out of place, and I'm not really quite sure what the point of it is if it wasn't part of some larger thing. Alexis Louder has probably the meatiest role as the sort of younger cop, I guess. I haven't seen her in a lot except for the Tomorrow War.
She's basically the only character in the movie that isn't a piece of shit.
Right. And that's another thing too. I'm really confused by the ending. You mentioned it has like 3 false endings. The ending really leaves me wondering who we were supposed to be rooting for.
Yes, extremely ambiguous.
So it's a little, I think it's just pulpy to be pulpy at times, and I think it is to a fault. I didn't mind most of it, but it just toward the end it just sort of all fell apart for me.
Yeah.
The Toby Huss character is really fun while he's there. And just this hyper violent psychopathic character. But then there's some other stuff that happens. There's a few twists and surprises that don't really make sense, even in the logic of this bizarre movie. I think it probably had it probably could have been a lot nastier in some parts, a little bit more gruesome and just sort of funny, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really loses something by being kind of stone serious until Toby Huss shows up.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's your grade for Copshop, Cody?
I give it a C. Again, I didn't really enjoy it much. I think it takes a while to get going. I think it's talky. I think that there's moral ambiguity to the point where I'm not sure that it's supposed to be as ambiguous as it actually is. Based on that ending, it seems like it was played for one direction, and it doesn't really deliver in that because, two of the three characters involved in that final scene are ostensibly bad guys. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a C+. I think Toby Huss elevates it to a point where I think that part's really fun, but I think the rest of it's just sort of kind of a letdown when it all is said and done. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, Cody, what's happening?
We're going to take a week off next week.
Okay, cool.
Because I am moving. And
oh, finally.
Yeah, I'm moving on Friday, and then I'll be at Fantastic Fest for a few days. So.
Oh yeah, it's already Fantastic Fest. I've from you and some other people on Twitter, I've seen that it's been a kind of a shit show.
Yeah, I mean,
tickets.
Not so much for me for press, but for the others, and a little bit for press too. I mean, they have eliminated the ability to just kind of randomly stumble into things because you have to have tickets prior. And stumbling into things was one of the best parts of Fantastic Fest, but I mean, look, they have a very difficult task on their hands of trying to create a safe film festival, and I think they're doing the best they can given the constraints. So
it was a weird vibe the few years I did it to go see like a really grisly genre movie at like 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday.
Yeah, well, a lot of that has changed as a result of like the scheduling this year. But like I've said in previous years, Fantastic Fest, I think, has taken a turn into being a lot more interesting than it once was, just in terms of diversity of films and really embracing foreign films that aren't necessarily genre. I've seen some great things there, and so. But yes, I have walking into some kind of psychological horror thing at 8:00 in the morning was. Like, I mean, I watched the movie The Endless at like 8:00 in the morning, which is just a mind fuck of a movie, and it's like I'm not awake enough for this.
Yeah, I watched The Autopsy of Jane Doe at like 8:00 on a Sunday morning, and Emile Hirsch was there.
Yeah.
And this tells you how much the culture has changed in the I think that was like 2018, maybe 2017. They had in the lobby, they had a life-size setup of The Autopsy of Jane Doe with a naked woman mannequin in the, very detailed in the lobby, which I don't think that would fly anymore.
No.
Also with Emile Hirsch in attendance probably wouldn't fly anymore, but
yeah.
Anyway. Cool. Well, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. You can find us on Twitter @CineSnob, Facebook, CineSnobNet, YouTube.com/CineSnob. Cody, anything else from you?
No, we'll be back in a couple weeks with Many Saints of Newark. You'll be covering that alone. I'm not going to be able to catch up on Sopranos in a couple.
So you're not even going to watch it?
I know. I don't want to. I don't think I should.
I think you can watch it. I don't think it's that tied in. Like,
I guess I do, just from a standpoint of like doing it proper, feel weird about reviewing something out of context, but I mean, I guess I can watch it just to see how it works as a standalone, but Venom also comes out. Venom Let There Be Carnage also comes out that week, so.
Oh yeah, I wonder if we're going to have a screening of that.
I don't know, maybe.
I sent you that crazy poster I saw on Twitter with just Michelle Williams,
yes.
Like just a headshot of Michelle Williams and a Venom poster. Like, what is happening? Anyway,
no.
I think we both did, but I hated that first Venom.
Oh, that's
I hated
awful.
it.
It's truly bad.
We'll see if this one's any better. This is directed by Andy Serkis, I believe, right?
Is it? I thought I didn't know that Ruben Fleischer left the movie.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I'm pretty sure it's
yeah.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, yeah.
Interesting. I never
and
saw
Tom
his.
Hardy has a story credit on it, so.
Oh. I never saw Andy Serkis's Jungle Book movie,
I didn't either.
Anyway, all right. Anything else?
No, but the screenplay is written by the someone who co-wrote Saving Mr. Banks and wrote 50 Shades of Grey. So they also wrote the first Venom. So
well, fuck it then. All right. On that note, I'm Jerry Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit cinesnob.net. See you next week.